Hello, everyone. Thanks to those of you who are here. Welcome to the meeting of the Education and Local Economy Scrutiny Commission. My name is Councillor Cassandra Brown and I'm the chair of the Commission. We are not a decision-making body and the Commission's role is to make recommendations for consideration by the Cabinet. There are no planned fire alarm tests this evening. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave by the nearest fire exit and make your way to the agreed assembly point, which is at St John's Churchyard off Druid Street. Council security staff will be available to direct you. Do I need to keep doing this? I feel like everyone in this room knows this information. Is it important that I do this whole thing? Okay, I'll do it. I'm very happy to. Very happy to do it for the people online who might need to use the public toilets, which are located off the main reception area. Please switch your mobile phone to silent whilst in the meeting room. Members of the public are welcome to film, audio record, photograph, or tweet the public proceedings of the meeting. I just ask you to be considerate towards other people in the room and take care not to disturb the proceedings. If you are filming the meeting, please do not film the audience. A copy of the Council's protocol for reporting and filming is available on the Southwark Council website. There is free internet in this room, which is called Southwark Free Wi-Fi, and it doesn't need a password to access. This meeting is being live streamed via the Microsoft Teams platform to YouTube and will be uploaded to Southwark Council's YouTube channel by tomorrow. May I remind members to raise your hand if you wish to speak. Please wait until I have given you permission to speak before contributing. And a reminder for all members and officers and myself to ensure that we keep the microphone close and speak directly into it, because it is often hard to hear online if we don't do that. And please, can members refrain from digressing onto other issues and keep comments and questions concise and specific to the agenda being discussed tonight. So on that note, we'll move on to agenda item 1. First up, we have apologies, and I have received apologies from Councillor Irina von Wies due to illness, and also from Martin Bracknell and Mana Cargbo. I have, since my notes were published, received further apologies from Councillor Margie Newens, Councillor John Hartley, and Councillor Mohammed Dean. No other apologies have been received unless anyone else in the room is aware of them. Okay, thank you. And just to note that for all 3 of those members, it is related to illness. Unfortunately, we are approaching Christmas, and unfortunately that is often the case. Okay, so in terms of confirming the voting members present, please can those in the room show their hand or respond verbally when I call their name out. You've already heard from me, I'm a voting member. I'm Councillor Cassandra Brown, the chair of the Commission. Councillor Rachel Bentley.
Councillor Rachel Bentley, vice chair, and I'm a voting member.
Thank you. Councillor Yusuf Hussain.
Councillor Yusuf Hussain, Newington Ward, and I'm a voting member.
Thank you very much. I would also like to welcome our newly appointed co-opted member. No, she isn't here, but I'm happy to have it on record that I have welcomed her, even though she is not here. Her name is Claire Williams. Did we receive apologies from her, or is she just not yet participating?
She accepted it.
Oh, interesting. Maybe she's running late. Gosh, we are thin on the ground tonight. I'm sorry, Councillor Ali.
Chair, are you able to give some background on her?
I am not. Apart from what I've already given, which is that she is a representative for the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Southwark. I didn't say that, did I? Thank you for that nudge, Councillor Bentley. All right, so on to agenda item 2, which is the notification of any items of business which the chair deems urgent. There are no urgent items as far as I am concerned. Agenda item 3, disclosure of interests and dispensations. Does any member here wish to declare any interests or dispensations in respect of any item of business that's being considered tonight? Thank you. And number 4, the minutes. So we just need to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of October. Were they circulated? They were. Excellent. Good. Can I get approval on those? Good. Thank you. Fab. Okay, agenda item 5. First up tonight, we have our cabinet member interview with Councillor Ali, whose focus areas in her portfolio are children, education, and refugees. So we're very much looking forward to hearing from you tonight. You've got just under 45 minutes for this section, so I'd suggest perhaps a 15-minute overview, and then we'll jump into questions. Of course, if you need a bit longer, then I could probably allow that. For me. You need to move the mic much closer, apparently. Yeah, like right next to your mouth, basically. Yeah. Not in your mouth, but close to it. No, still not good enough.
Oh dear. What about that?
Could you move it like here?
Is that really necessary?
Yeah, that's better.
Is
I
that
know,
right?
I know, it's all very
No, no,
silly, isn't it,
practice.
really? So demanding. Well, we can hear you, so let's get going. I am happy to introduce the latecomers. Thank you, Councillor Ali. That's very kind of you. Welcome for those who've just joined us. Ali Callan, hello, welcome. No problem. Yeah, okay, cool. All right. And Claire Williams, welcome. You're our new representative of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Southwark, which is excellent. So I will just have to confirm once more because Ali and Claire, you are voting co-opted members. So please can you just raise your hand when I say your name and just explain and confirm that you are a voting member. So Ali Callan, voting member, fabulous, and Claire Williams. Okay, brilliant. Just a reminder, because you didn't hear this before, make sure your microphone is really close to your mouth when you speak. It's so that the people online can hear, because we've had issues in the past with that. Okay, all right. Well, we're going to jump back to agenda item 5, Councillor Ali's cabinet member interview. I believe you have a presentation. Okay. Bear with me 1 second. We're getting a message from audio.
Okay.
Yeah, make sure you press the button if you wish to speak as well. We have a lot of autonomy over our buttons at this event.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it. Okay, it's really great to be here and really good to meet the new co-opted members. As I mentioned before, in 2014, when I first became a councillor, I also chaired this committee, but I wasn't half as good as you, Cass. So anyway, so so what I've got is a few slides. My cabinet role is children, education, and refugees. I'm starting with children. So let me just work how to drive this. Okay, so my leadership vision for children's services then, we all know the vision for Southwark, but for children, what that means is a good start in life. Children and young people have a great childhood that builds on the very solid foundation for adult life. You will know, everyone's familiar with Southwark 2030, which I brought here. And we did a mass listening exercise, and it was great to hear residents say that children were definitely a priority. And of course, you know, we're looking at post-COVID, hopefully a once-in-a-lifetime event of a pandemic, and that's obviously had an impact on quite a lot of our children and young people. So, you know, it's that and the cost of living, you know, a number of things which bear down on family life. So it was really great that when we spoke to people, obviously people worried about buildings and a number of things, housing and things, but for them to call out children quite high, you know, that was really good. So in response to that then, good life, good start in life is a vision reflected in the delivery of children's services and particularly social care services. Oh my goodness, I need to rewind. I should have said that I've got with me my main man. He's a director of children's services, Alistair, who you'll be hearing from when I've finished. Sorry about that. Okay, so those who experience disadvantage then, whose life chances are most at risk of being negatively impacted, have the right to expect an excellent service from the council and its partners, helping them, you know, to live a good life. So support for families, their children, the best start in life, which we'll unpack later, improving outcomes for children who face disadvantage, including those with special education needs and disabilities. And I know, Chair, that this is very close to your heart, and we'll come on to that shortly. And ensuring all young people can participate in positive activities. So let's unpack this then. What does it mean for education? So SEND, first up, special education needs and disability and inclusion. Now, I just wanted to start by thanking everyone in this committee and thanking you really, Councillor Brown, because you came and you spent a long time witnessing how EHCPs are done, and you made a number of recommendations, and I'm thrilled to say it's not always the case, but the majority of those recommendations were accepted and will be embedded in our practice. So, you know, thank you for all your work. So the demand for EHCPs is still high. The stats are there. I mean, basically, we are above the national average. I think you know that. The rate of completion of EHCPs has improved since you last saw us. And we have continued our focus on developing evidence-based and preventative approaches in early years. The rate of permanent exclusion, because obviously we're looking at this as the same coin, and the different sides of the same coin around permanent exclusions. And I'm happy to say that the rate of permanent exclusions in Southwark is the 14th lowest in the country, a quarter of the national rate. But that doesn't mean to say we're complacent, and we'll come on to that. And I don't think that you'd expect that in any event. Okay, I set up a listening project. I listened to a number of children and families who do experience or have experienced exclusion, and you know, some of the most vulnerable in our community. And I'm near completion of that project. I listened to, I don't know, about 20 odd families, and we also we did a survey as well, and we also spoke to some of the children and young people as well. So I'm really excited about sharing that information with you. We're presenting it in typologies so that protecting the anonymity of the cases, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Look, we're positively working to address some of the biggest challenges that our children and families face while awaiting, you know, government reform plans. Now, building capacity. It's a good story. There's a lot of words there, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to build capacity where we can. We know that there are falling school roles. We've used some buildings which are going to be repurposed for special education needs and disabilities. We've expanded some of the schools that we have already for special needs, for SEND. We've most recently, we agreed a 5.7 million investment to Ivydale Primary School so that we can actually, you'll remember that that was 2 schools. We built a new building, so we are making the older building a bit more state of the art for the current cohort, and then the new building we'll make ready for special education needs. So I'll just canter on. And we've launched, you know, and grown our special education needs and disabilities children and family hub. Okay, now It's not consistent changes. Okay, so the standards and outcomes. I'm really pleased to tell you that I went to Cabinet. Alistair and I went to Cabinet this week with the standards report. I mean, it's an annual event, but today we basically said that our schools are 99% good and outstanding. And my goodness me, when you think about the journey, you know, the London Challenge, you know, all of that, when we were, and Southwark were particularly bad. We were joint second from the bottom on the league tables, and now we're, you know, some of the best schools, not just in London. We don't compare favourably to the well-heeled boroughs, well, we do, but we also, you know, are doing well nationally as well. So there's that, well, so that schools are delivering exceptional outcomes. Strong at GCSE and A-level, and exceptional achievements for children in care and pupils with special education needs and disabilities. Okay, so when you look at it, 99%, that's 100% good and outstanding for special needs schools, for primary schools. You know, I mean, it's pretty amazing, really. Okay, system challenges then. You'll know that we've had keeping education strong. We know you know that that was our way of trying to get in front of this challenging period whereby we had a drop in the birth rate and a lot of families were moving out of London. 35% of families leaving London, 40% less children being born. I mean, goodness me. And then when, you know, we had the COVID pandemic, even more families were leaving the capital. There are a number of issues why that is, and I think you know that. But the Keeping Education Strong strategy was where the council worked with the schools. And the idea was to actually look at the numbers and look at taking places out, you know, of the current school estate so that, you know, we could work with schools in order to, well, as I say, right size, you know, the school places. So we've concluded that now, and basically that is finished, and we managed to get to a situation where we kept education strong, that schools, you know, we didn't do onto schools, they worked to pick schools which, you know, didn't have the pupil numbers to close. So basically that's concluded now, although I have to say, looking future, it doesn't look like, I mean, I was kind of hoping that the new Labour government might be like a national aphrodisiac and people would start having babies again, but that's not happened yet. So we'll have to see really where we are in the next quarter about, you know, we'll have to get ahead of it again, unless, you know, we're building so many houses now. You know, the idea is to make London habitable and affordable again for families. Okay, so moving on. Exclusions, that's a hazardous challenge. I mean, just because, you know, we are the lowest level of exclusions in England, while Southwark outperforms even London, that doesn't mean to say that we are complacent, and we won't stop really until no children fall through our fingers. And we're, you know, I really want to come and show you the listening project when we finish the report. And in fact, it goes without saying, when we launch it and have the event, you'll all have VIP tickets, really. We'd really want you to be there. But the thing is, you know, some of those stories, really, we want to learn how we can do better for children excluded in schools. And even with our own services, you know, which are brilliant, nevertheless, you know, there are lessons there for us on how we can manage our services better. Okay, moving on. Children's social care. Corporate parenting, you know that I chair the corporate parenting team. We have reduced numbers of children in our care, and now more in line with similar boroughs, but more children in care as teenagers, and their needs have never been higher, presenting practice provision and cost challenges. The Corporate Parent Committee spearheaded a one council approach, and we are working, you know, we are never complacent and we're always striving to do better. However, I can assure you that the education outcomes, you know, are better than our peers across London. And, we've had our first care leave. I think, Rachel, you were on the corporate parenting committee for a while, weren't you, Councillor Bentley? So you know as well as we do that some of the outcomes in education and attainment have been really pleasing. The challenges then, placement sufficiency. The children's placement market is broken, relying on private profit-making providers, and this has presented a huge challenge. We had to rely on a lot of placements which are outside of the borough, sometimes outside of London. We're rolling back on that. We've managed to commission more accommodation here in London, and we've committed to opening council-owned and run children's home in the borough. I mean, we recently opened Olive House in July this year, and the sufficiency strategy for children and care leavers is currently being renewed on our corporate parenting committee. But we're moving in the right direction here. Safeguarding. I know that you've got a session on safeguarding later, so I won't dwell too much on this. Despite the lower numbers of children subject to child protection plans that historically in the borough, our child protection activity is considerably busy, really. And but the number of children in our care, is the lowest that we've had. And I think what is interesting is our early help and prevention, which we'll talk about, is actually working. We're always striving to provide the best possible services, looking critically at ourselves to see how we can do better, responding positively to system challenges. In our recent review of children and family hubs, we use that in order to really sharpen up our early intervention and prevention, not only for early years. We started from a strong base because, as you know, as a Labour administration, we managed to defend all our Sure Start children's centres, and so repurposing them to children and family hubs was not massively a lot of work, but not massively difficult because we had the infrastructure there. Looking forward, so I'll just move on to the next. And the Best Start Family Hubs, we've got the networks there. The slides are there for you to look at, and you can see where they all are. And I think these maps are probably important for the high level stuff. Families asked us that they wanted to be within 20 minutes walking distance of children and family hubs. And I think we're nearly there, really. I mean, there's a bit of an outlier, which is Dulwich. But if you look at the next graph, which is deprivation affecting children, we've got them in the right places. So you can see Kingswood at the end of the south there, the Dulwich bit there.
Councillor Ali, just to clarify, because I don't know if other people are confused, what the colours mean?
Yeah, okay. So basically the one map is the 20 minutes walking, the blue one. The second one is the deprivation affecting children. So basically those are all the areas, and the stars on the middle map and on the other one are where the children's centres are, the children and family centres. I brought you a publication where you can, basically see closer, and I'll give those out in a minute. And then the last one is to demonstrate that we are 15 minutes public transport journeys away. So the furthest you'll have to, if you live in Southwark, 20-minute walk. They're all in areas of high deprivation or deprivation, and 15 minutes from public transport journeys. Sorry, I've just thrown this in. I don't know if you're that interested in this, but one of the things I look after a school's climate network, because every cabinet member has to do their bit really for the planet, and we've managed to exceed our targets really. So we've got 35 Southwark schools have registered to Southwark's Climate Action Schools Network, and we've had a number of projects going, and we've had events this week. The Bird in Bush School, which is one of the schools that amalgamated, if you remember, they were at the GLA the other day being an exemplar on Greener Schools programme. So did you know that? Right, yeah. So that was pretty cool. And so, yeah, I won't dwell too much on that. Scholarships. We did it, everybody. We managed to keep it going. Okay, at a reduced rate. I mean, gone are the days that we send 25 people to university each year. I've had to really scale that back because of the cost pressures. Nevertheless, at least if we keep it going, you can always flex it up in better days. And we started that in 2011. We've supported 148 young people into higher education that may not have gone to or be afforded to take up their university placements. We sponsored scholars to universities across England, including Oxford, Cambridge, London School of Economics, Imperial College, King's College, London South Bank, Queen Mary Universities, and many others. We sent someone to California. That was, one of the first ones. Our scholars complete their degrees in various disciplines from law, business, medicine, psychology, arts, natural sciences, and we had a dancer as well, and she came along at that event on that photograph to mentor the new scholars. One of the things, because people really weren't convinced that this was value for money, sending people from low-paid houses. So those little banners that they're holding up, that's this year's cohort, and that shows what they're going to do when they come back. How they'll invest back in the community. And then one person who graduated 4 years ago, he said that he'd set up a hedge fund to help our youth services. And now he's working in a hedge fund now. So I'm really looking forward to him coming back and helping us. Sorry, I'll move on. More positive policy development. Free healthy school meals extended to secondary schools, and then the government copied our idea, didn't they? So they are giving it to all universal credit families. Government's Best Start breakfast programmes. I'll answer any questions you have on those. Piloted in the Belham and Crawford, and now it's being launched the next phase with 500 more schools to be funded from April 2026. The free mental health drop-in, we managed to get extended funding from health. The submission to Education Committee on Special Education Needs and Disabilities, we submitted that. And we also submitted some of your ideas in that submission. And submission to the Poverty Strategy Commission, calling for them to scrap the child benefit cap. So obviously that helped. And statements on, so we got there in the end, Councillor Bentley, and statements on immigration proposals.
Councillor Ali, I'll give you another minute if that's all right, so we can get into questions.
Yeah, okay. And then just quickly, the Borough of Sanctuary. We've launched the Borough of Sanctuary. We've basically got a plan of what we've done for the first year and what we'll do for the second year. And one of the things that you might be interested in is that we've launched a statement asking our own government to think again, really, on some of their issues. I mean, obviously, no one wants to see the small boats, people endangering their lives. But, as a borough sanctuary with the third highest rate of refugees, we don't believe that creating a 20-year route to settlement is, we can't support that. And family, reunited. Obviously, we know plenty of people that have been reunited in the asylum system. So, that's that. And I think my next steps, but we don't need to hear that. Perhaps we can I'll tick them off later and see if,
Maybe we can keep that slide up for the moment. Yeah?
Yeah,
awesome.
Good.
Thanks, Councillor Ali. Obviously, a 15-minute overview of everything in your portfolio, so it's impossible to cover everything that you've done and that you're doing, but hopefully that gives commission members enough to get their teeth into. I'm sure there'll be members who'd like to ask some questions. So I've got Councillor Bentley first.
Hey, I don't want to sound like a teacher, but were these slides submitted beforehand? Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I think it would have been helpful, but I was paying attention. And I just wanted to clarify that I hadn't missed them in my emails. On the first slide, you were talking about the send provision, which obviously has been a topic that we've been looking into very closely on this committee. You also mentioned on the same slide around the permanent exclusions being the 14th lowest in the country. And I just wanted to understand, I assume there is, in certain situations, a link between send and exclusions. And I wanted you to possibly, maybe with Alistair, explain a little bit more about how that manifests so that we can think about our role maybe in coming up with some ideas on how that can be addressed.
Councillor Ali, microphone.
First, I'm really sorry that I didn't hand them in, but I have got I've got strange idiosyncrasies myself, and that is I tend to over prepare for things. So I was literally writing these right up to the wire, but next time I'll definitely make sure I get them in on time. On the send and exclusion, on the listening project, I really can't wait to share that with you. Do you know that the majority of families that came to see me, or, you know, it wasn't exclusively, but there was, and I've had an experience myself, really, a similar experience where at key points in the education system, not exclusively, but mainly from primary to secondary, comes an emerging, you know, special education need. And then quite often the reaction is like behaviourist approach. And so you're like looking at literally square pegs in round holes, really. And I think that we've got enough evidence, you know, to demonstrate that that has been the case for quite a lot of families. It's interesting, I did speak to head teachers and I played some of the stories back at Alistair's head teacher breakfast briefing. And, you know, they were quite humble about it, really, and they want to really improve. But it is typical, you know, children that are, there's a big spectrum of special education needs and disabilities or disabilities. But it does seem that something's happened in the, you know, with people say the COVID generation, and I don't want to sensationalise it, but it does seem, you know, that straight after, you know, the lockdowns and all of that, all the children, even from early years, they were impacted. But it felt that they found it really difficult to settle down or catch up. But it does feel that there was a lot in common, and that was an emerging special need, or, you know, not neurotypical. Do you know what I mean? So I can't be dishing out diagnoses, but we're all moving in the right direction, but not fast enough, I would say. And that's my initial thoughts. That's why we're going to launch this quite quickly. But I will say, just so that you can be assured that they know about this, but the head teacher's response is to look at need now, as opposed to diagnosis first. And, you know, that will be quite interesting. I mean, it's self-explanatory.
Can you expand on what you mean by that a bit more? So what do you mean by need rather than diagnosis?
Well, looking at a child and seeing what their need is, do you know what I mean? So it's, quite often you'd have, you could have cases whereby the school didn't feel that they were cut out to support that person until they knew what they were dealing with. Is it ADHD? Is it, you know, is it just straightforward autism? Is it, you know, some kind of neurodiversity? All of those three fit into that. But teachers are saying that they don't want to wait for diagnosis now, that they will try and work, you know, with that pupil, which is a huge leap, really. But yes, it's like not exclusively, but majority. You could tie it back to an emerging in the experiences. My own experience talking to those families, an emerging need. And we always said, didn't we, when we launched the Inclusion Charter, when I went head to head with Tom Bennett, but that you know, if you had an emerging, you know, or if you were prone to exclusion, it was down to an unmet need, not just bad behaviour.
Thanks. That is interesting. I would like to recommend that we get some statistical info on that. I think for us as a commission, we've looked at send in detail, and would the council have that kind of information, the breakdown of children who've been excluded, whether they are classed as send or not? Yes or no?
You definitely get that on the breakdown that I've looked at, because I've met and spoken to all the families.
Well, yeah. So if we could get that, that would be good. And an explanation of need over diagnosis from officers. I think we'd love to see what the actual definition of that approach is.
More articulate.
No, but thank you for your overview, Jasmine, as well. Any other questions? I have one or two, if nobody else does. You have another one? Okay, I'll go next, and then we'll come back to you. So, on the employability pathway piece, something that this commission has expressed interest in is care leavers and where they're going. So I wondered about that. It sounds like it's aimed at care leavers. So when is that launching? And can you say what the success metrics are of that project?
Okay, we've got, I think it's 300,000. Is that right? No. Yeah. I'll say it.
I can say that it has launched already. It did come to corporate parenting committee. We've got colleagues later who are talking about connect to work schemes as part of the opportunity around that. And there are a number of different departments in the council who have offered employment opportunities. So there's a mix of them. There's from internships, apprenticeships to paid roles. There's also an aspect of that. If you apply for a job, if you look on the Southwark website now, you will see, and I was quite struck recently because people say these things, and when I look at it, actually, if you're a care leaver and you meet the minimum criteria, you will get a guaranteed job interview. So there's lots of different parts to that. But the Connect to Work scheme and the opportunity to put extra resource in that for care leavers has really been a huge opportunity. So we know very recently we've had a group of 5 care leavers that have experienced that through the council. It's a leadership network of the 100 people across the council. Tomorrow we're going to be spending a little time profiling it there. So there's some great stories. We'll be happy to share that at a later opportunity. I mean, it does go regularly back to corporate parenting committee who holds, I think, not just children's services officers to account, but others outside that in the wider council, which I think is really helpful.
And I just wanted to add to that, Councillor Battison, the employment, he comes along to corporate parenting, even though he's not on it, he comes to it every time we have that, on the agenda to make sure that everyone's happy with it.
That's good.
And it's been co-designed by care experienced young people alongside colleagues from children's services and local economy. So
Great.
pretty awesome, really.
Okay. And it's new, isn't it? It's brand new. Just launched, pretty much.
Yes, I mean,
but
this did used to happen in different places in the council. We've done some work to really coordinate it, have it more understood, promote it, amplify it, and then the Connect to Work scheme, the resource that's been recently been gained by the council puts added emphasis to that. So we think we can do a lot more in that area.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
All right.
so
We'll leave that until we get to Connect to Work then, just so we've got enough time to go with what you've said, Councillor Ali. Councillor Bentley, you can come back in.
I think it was around the comment about First Secondary School is closing. Is that right? Did I see that on the slides?
Yeah.
So I understand it's not a council-run school, but are you able to share any more details on that?
Yeah.
Like how many children will be affected, and the kind of timing? It looked like there was something happened in September.
I'll share what I recall about it, because we've had quite a lot of dialogue with them. Obviously it's a very difficult, sensitive issue for them. They've had to put a lot of thought into it. It is an academy, so they do that. It's a decision that they make with the consent of the DFE. They have to do that, and it's only fairly recently they've written to all parents about that. I think only a couple of weeks ago. So my understanding is that that year 7 and 8 will not continue, and I think years when year 9 goes into year 10 next year, they're going to see through years 10 and 11. So that's why it's described in here as a planned closure, different to how we've managed the primary schools. It is a bit of a hard stop. They've got some children who are at some pretty crucial stages of GCSE, so they're committed to seeing that cohort through. And then to working with us, working with other schools, partner schools. They've talked about it with nearby schools to support those children to be able to have place in the other schools. actual numbers, I can't remember off the top of my head, but obviously there are falling roles there, so they aren't the biggest numbers because the role's been under pressure for quite some time. It's possibly up near the 100 mark, I think, in each year, but probably quite less, I think, in the year 7, because that's it was really when seeing the numbers in year 7 this year that made them take that difficult decision.
And is there any sense that any other secondaries are thinking of this that we know about? You don't have to name them, obviously, but is it on the horizon?
I want to just say that the dialogue with secondary schools has been really good and positive, and it's noted there we had a place planning seminar that many of the Academy Trust attended. We've given information to SASH, the the Southwark Association of Secondary Heads, and I know they've talked about it as a group. I don't know of any that have any planned closures. I know that there's pressure, and I think that they would like to work together as a group, because variety is really important in the secondary space as well. So I don't have any more update I can share with you on that. But apart from saying we want to work with the whole system to try and support it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ali.
Yeah, education healthcare plan. In terms of
Ali, microphone, please.
okay. It's a quick question really on the education healthcare plan in terms of the assessment, how this has been conducted. In terms of seeing, because normally they said it takes a long time. What's really the delay? What causes the delay in terms of the assessment to complete education healthcare plan?
Yeah, there are many parts to an education health and care plan. You need education information, care information, and health information. So it's coordinating all that information. Often it's specialist information. I think picking up the point about differentiating between need and saying we need to focus more on need. Children don't necessarily need a CAM service, or people can wait for a diagnosis. Actually, children need support, the right support in place at the right time in a school setting to thrive in education. That might be they need help from a skilled professional around their speech and language. That might be more of what they need rather than a diagnosis. And I think I'm wanting to answer Councillor Bentley's question as well as come back to yours to illustrate both of that, rather than going on a long waiting list for a diagnosis, which might be a label, but then but it delays getting a child what they actually need to do well in education. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do in the system. But back to that point, there's lots of, not only do we have to coordinate information from a number of different sources, and health, for example, you might need to have physical assessment at Sunshine House and a speech and language assessment from somewhere else. So it's a lot of information. And then it's the quality of that information as well. That's got to be good enough information. And schools have got to show they've taken various steps to inform what that plan should be at the end of the day. So there are significant delays. So delays nationally, but we're not hiding behind that. We've significantly improved our completion rate for those. And also we have started to put help earlier. The commission spent more time in it, and I appreciate you were a co-opted member of the commission at that time to try and put more help earlier in the earlier years, so that there isn't as much need for those assessments, because parents are getting that help earlier, and early year settings and schools are. And there's a long way to go on that, but that's our aspiration around that.
I mean,
It's really excellent, is that?
I just wanted to add that, the role of the council is that we have opened up, I opened up a free mental health drop-in as part of our pledge to support 100% of children with mental health needs, because sometimes children would have to wait up to 2 to 3 years for clinical assessment, and it was no different. You know, looking at ASD or autism. I mean, I think basically when I last looked, the waiting time for an autism assessment is 2 years. You know, and that's like, I mean, if you think about it, childhood isn't a dress rehearsal. You know, children don't stay children for long, and to have to wait 2 years for that kind of assessment. So I think it's only right and proper that schools start thinking a bit more innovatively about meeting need, really. And as a council, we have tried to do that with our early help and intervention. It's just the health, you know, we haven't got, you know, they haven't got the resources in order to meet that need.
Yeah, it's very good. We are at time on this agenda item. Well, I'm happy to take one more question if anyone wants to ask anything, but it must be concise, both the question and the answer. No? Okay, well, thank you. I think we're in a very different position this year to when you last came. You intertwine some of your updates with the national policy picture, which has changed quite drastically, I would say, in the last couple of weeks when it comes to children's services. So lifting the 2-child benefit cap is huge. I note 20,000 children will be lifted out of poverty in Southwark. I think I've got that statistic right. That's what I saw on social media this week. So yeah, I think yeah, thank you, and all the best for the 2026 Ofsted inspection coming up on children's services. But I'm sure we will touch on that again
Thank you.
at the commission.
Thank you for all that you've done, really contributing to the SEND and our work. So thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you to the commission members who made the recommendations we put forward possible. So thank you, Councillor Ali. Alistair, I think you are staying. Alistair is here to talk to us tonight about the Southwark Safeguarding Children Partnership. And we've got around half an hour to cover this agenda item. Are you going to stay, Councillor Ali? Fabulous. We're delighted that you're staying. So, yeah, I think if we can split this into ideally 10 to 15 minutes of you, Alistair, giving us an update, or shorter, if that works, and then we'll go into questions.
Okay, thank you. Shorter does work. We've circulated the annual report, which I hope members have had a chance to read. I'm speaking because I'm the chair of the Southwark Safeguarding Children Partnership, and the chair rotates on an annual basis between the police and health partners. So I'm chairing it, and I think my term goes on to the end of this year. So just some things to draw your attention to in the report, and then I'm happy to take questions. The first part really is about the arrangements of how the partnership works. So I hope they make some sense. It does a lot of the work through its subgroups. They're listed there. The learning network, how learning is disseminated. You see there that we've really tried to have a refreshed look at that with the support of public health. Child safeguarding practice review subgroup, which is constituted to look at serious safeguarding incidents, and there's statutory guidance about what you should and shouldn't do there. And it's a tough space, really. Lots of sad information comes through that group, but a lot of the changes that government made in working together to safeguard children, the statutory guidance which brings all the agencies together to safeguard children, was really trying to push us to put learning, not to wait for 2 years for some kind of wise learning report, but to front load the learning. And that's what we do. And that's through that group. Quality and effectiveness subgroup, which is the engine room of the Safeguarding Children Partnership. It's got lots of really good representation across the different agencies. That does what it says in the tin, I hope, looks at the quality and effectiveness. And I think you can see that in later sections of the report, some of the work that it's done in those areas. And when you read them, I think you read that in the areas of focus section, it is quite honest about where we still got to improve. I think that is actually a good thing. I think if I was presenting a report that was nicely polished and perfect, for a place like Southwark with its its high indices around deprivation and child poverty and its challenges, it's a tough place to work, and it's a tough place to safeguard children and do our best for children. So I think when I read it, I hadn't read it for a few months since it was published, a few weeks since it was published. I read it again. I was struck on how much work does go on, and there are two kind of other groups then that really look at some of the practice areas, what's called the MACE arrangements, multi-agency arrangements around child exploitation, and that's really important around older children, young people, and often around risks outside the family home. So it's not to say that there aren't vulnerabilities within the family home, but there's lots going on, as we know, for young people outside the family home. We come together under those arrangements. And then the last one is that what's called the MASH, Strategic Partnership Board, the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub. So that's really the front door, we think, of in social care, when all the agencies really consider what the risks are and share information around a child. So those are under the auspices of the Safeguarding Children Partnership Executive. So the next part really talks about some of the work that's gone on over the year. And I was just going to talk a bit about some of the data and then the areas of focus, and then I'll finish. If I can just draw the Commission's attention to page 12 of the report, section 6. That sets out all our core child protection activity. And in Councillor Ali's slide, she noted that children subject to child protection plans was lower than it has been historically. And it's more in line with statutory aid, which is a good thing. But our child protection activity is high. It's still a very, very busy place. That is borne out in the statistics. If you look at those around, for example, at the bottom of page 12, around what we called section 47 inquiries. Those are basically child protection inquiries. You'd see that our rate of that is 262 for every 10,000 residents, but actually boroughs that are similar to us are 225. And the London rate is 172 and the England rate is 187. I'm not going to take you through lots of statistics, but I'm just trying to illustrate that our activity is high. I'm not always super comfortable with that because child protection activity is an intervention into family life, and family life absolutely should be respected. That's my background as child protection social work. If you knock on a family's door and say, I need to come in to talk to you about something, you need to have a good reason for it. So I'm very conscious of the balance that's there. But in terms of assurance, it's good that we're very busy in that space. So if numbers are low, we might think, gosh, are they a bit too low? Are we missing any children? And I could never say we're not missing children. It's a humans run by social workers in very complex situations in the community. But what I hope, so there is a lot of work that goes on around that. I won't go through those, but what I hope it does convey is what I said at the beginning is that there is, we do spotlight different areas of work that we think are priorities. And in some of that, you'll see like the work we've done on domestic abuse, or even the individual child safeguarding practice review around child H. We really do take a good look at ourselves. And as a multi-agency, that is hugely important because I'm sure that many of the Commission are aware that how complex safeguarding of children can be, where information is held in many different spaces. For example, children spend most of the time in schools. Unless you're working effectively with schools, you will not know all you need to know to better safeguard children. And one of the changes we've made in the last year is to involve schools much more, both in the Safeguarding Children Executive and the different subgroups. And that's not easy to do because when government may give statutory guidance about the involvement of education, education is not a single organisation. It's not like the Met Police, it's not one thing. It's lots of different schools. And how do you effectively coordinate that so you run your system in a better way? Just to quickly mention a couple of things. Child exclusions were talked about before, but children's attendance, temporary exclusion through suspensions and permanent exclusions, they're all part of the same picture. And we do know that there's a strong correlation between that and safeguarding and children's outcomes. So there's lots of work within children's services and the safeguarding partnership to raise the profile of that. And then just recently, I think it's just worth mentioning something that the safeguarding partnership is going to be doing is looking at Arab's law and the how the changes to statutory requirements around the conditions where that children live in, and not and what we need to do and respond to that. And there are real opportunities, we think, as a multi-agency partnership, how we can really promote the understanding of that, understanding of people who, not only social workers, but others who are in and out of the homes of the families where children live, and that when they see conditions where there's more responsibility and accountability, they can do something more about that. And we've got more duties to do something more about that. That's me. I finished, and I'm happy to take questions.
Excellent, thank you. And it's great to have such a detailed written report. However, I do just want to check. There's a lot more data outside of the areas of focus section, which I found quite interesting. And I just wondered if you could say kind of why that was.
In the report?
Yeah, and I guess I'm referring specifically to kind of statistical analysis. So when I was going through this, I was thinking, okay, why are those the areas of focus, and looking out for kind of figures that we might have to demonstrate why, for example, neglect is perhaps an area of focus.
I mean, I'll speak to neglect.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I'll speak to neglect. It doesn't all come out of figures and data. That tells one story. Neglect is I think one of the highest, if not the highest, category of children on subject to child protection plans. And the development of the neglect strategy did something that came out of both COVID and the cost of living crisis, because our numbers of children on subject to child protection plans, bear in mind they're 216 now, there were over 400 during COVID. And there are strong links between poverty and child protection safeguarding activity. But as a partnership, we were really concerned that families and children should not be unnecessarily taken through statutory child protection processes just because they are on hard times. And I think that recognition of all of that context, that it takes a couple of years to get a strategy to implement it, and you're seeing something that I think was initially reflected on in 2021, 2022, when the data was really strong there. And we were at our child protection activity, not just subject to plans, investigations was through the roof. And I just don't think it's a fair and ethical system if we're not really trying to support everyone to say what is the impact of poverty, and actually how do we give you the help you need, rather than take you through a system that can be experienced by families as punitive, whether it's not designed to be, but that's what they tell us about that system. And what we know about the child protection system is that most children, they remain with their families. So if we have a better strategy that looks at neglect, to try to get that help earlier and recognise those that need it more quickly, I think that's behind that. There's a rationale behind all of these areas. I think for an annual report, it's how much detail you even put in that report.
Yeah.
And but actually, it's really good to get feedback. Sometimes I don't think, when I looked at some of it, I thought we needed less detail in some areas, but maybe we need less in some areas, but tell the story a bit better in other ways about why we've arrived at something.
I think very naturally drawn to graphs and data. So when it's absent, it feels more obvious. And I guess from what you're saying, is it that actually it's not possible to kind of put stats around neglect or sexual abuse into a graph where we see the change year on year?
We got lots of data, lots of things we could.
It was intentional not to include.
I'm not inviting this, but if the commission wanted to have a spotlight on something, we could do much more detail.
Okay, all right. Well, we might get there.
Okay.
Let's see where we get to in this discussion. Thank you. Cool, Councillor Bentley.
Thank you. And I was struck by what you were saying about, you know, the data, because when I was reading the report, I was thinking, oh, is this good or is this bad? I don't know. And it sounds like you were having the same kind of wrestle. But my question was, you just mentioned about Awab's law, and I think as councillors in this borough, we see a lot of families that are in very kind of overcrowded and often quite, you know, concerning housing conditions, and as you say, through no fault of their own. And I think something that has struck me, and looking at the focus on neglect, as you said, a lot of these families are often very poor. They're living in overcrowded situations, but that doesn't mean there are concerns about the love that they are experiencing from their family and their support network. And I think there really is that important need to focus on how the housing situation can then create all of these other problems that then go from that. And I think something that as a council, I know it's national legislation, but you know, what actually defines overcrowding? We are so often told with our situation where you'd look, any human would say that is not a reasonable situation where you've got kind of 4 children sleeping in bunk beds in a small room, you know, parents sleeping on a pull-out sofa in the kitchen, like kitchen dining area, and the ramifications that that then has upon some of these other points around, you know, conflict in the home. So I think what I'm saying is I think as a commission it would be really helpful to see how those Arabs law points around disrepair, overcrowding, housing conditions are affecting these points, because as you say, the goal ultimately has to keep families together, but the strain that those pressures and housing situation put on a lot of families can then cause all these other problems. And I think we're often told, oh, you know, a baby doesn't count as a human, you know, until they're 1 year old, or a child under 10 counts as half a person. I mean, this is really dehumanizing. And I'm saying it's not you who makes the decisions, but I think as a council, if we could start to really kind of restore those points around dignity, you know, that every human, whether they're a baby or, you know, whatever. And one last final point on that. I was reading the shelter guidance on these points the other day, and they were saying that, you know, if you've got siblings of different sex, once they've turned 18, they're not supposed to share a bedroom, but you could have a son sharing with a father and a mother sharing with their daughter. Once again, I think the impact that that has on family life is not something we should be kind of advocating. We should be calling it out. So I don't know how that fits in with neglect, or if you've got any comments you want to make on it.
But just to say that, obviously I'm not the housing department here, but I recognise, you know, everything you're saying there, that our social workers see this every day. So you may have a domestic abuse situation, but if you're living in overcrowded circumstances, clearly it's more difficult to manage that when you've got proximity in that way compared to other families in other circumstances. So it has a huge impact. The solutions aren't there to be put in place as quickly as we'd like. You know, have really good dialogue with housing. We've have a regular housing, health and social care partnership board at senior level. We're trying to problem solve around that. A good example is one of our experienced practitioners who works with care leavers, was formerly a housing worker, and really has brought a huge insight into us in social care to try to work to resolve some of these situations, not just with care leavers, but actually with families. But I can't add to what you say. It's I recognise what you say, and it's workers, you know, manage those situations every day with families.
I guess maybe it's going back to the chair's point around the data. Like, is there some linkage, I don't know, to kids that end up being subject to special protection orders and the kind of housing background that they're coming from? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you will tell me, and I fully believe you, without meaning to preempt what you're about to say, that abuse can take place in all sorts of households. But I just think if there is a link to that, it'd be useful to know it.
And the data's possibly harder to get at because lots of our data is heavily prescribed by Department of Education and its categories of abuse. So that example I gave you maybe will be domestic abuse. and social workers, they have to put a lot of data into that recording system. They're not then saying, actually, the reason for, a contributing factor for that may be X, Y, and Z. There are, I can hear my data person talk to me now. There are things like within assessment factors, for example, but I can't remember whether housing is one of those factors, and how we're able to disentangle the significance of that in a particular situation to present in a meaningful way for the Commission. But if we can, we will, and I think employment pressures on families, like housing, structural pressures on families are a really important part of the context in which social workers work. So I think that's as much as I can say.
Yeah, interesting. I think it would be good to get a bit more data on 8.1 to 8.3, those sort of three key, I don't know how you describe them, but categories prior to kind of learnings from reviews and the more sort of procedural stuff. Just so we can, as a commission, have a look at that and perhaps see if there's anything we want to dig into in future. And just thinking about what you said, Alistair, about social workers having that lens when they're working with families, would you recommend that we invite a social worker to come and see us? Like, could you make a recommendation to us for who else we might want to hear from around these issues?
Firstly, about the data, if the ask is that we can provide some data to the Commission outside, after this process, so you can have some consideration to inform what comes back here. Absolutely, we can support that. I think there's lots of ways you can do it creatively. I mean, one of the areas I'm super proud that we have a project that we have in Southwark is what's called parental peer advocacy. So we have parents who've been through the safeguarding system, who then have work with us and work with families and social workers, really to try and help those families and help us respond to them in a much better way. We've run that project, I think, for about 4 or 5 years now. Certainly, it really got going during COVID. I met with them probably last about a year ago. I think now there was about 8 or 10 of them in a room. It is really powerful. They got a really powerful voice of their experiences, and I think that hearing from them, Speaker Box, for example, they were our Children Care Council. Many of those were children who experienced, lived in family home settings that weren't the best for them. So I think those voices are super important. I also think that there's the voice of practice as well. And I think that's an interesting area for the Commission to dive into. It might want to go on the road and visit them rather than come here, or there are different ways of doing that and hearing those voices and some of those challenges.
Lovely. They're really helpful recommendations. And yeah, I'm sure at least 1 or 2 of us would love to go and see them. Seeing the HCP process actually was really powerful. So yeah, let's try and get out if we can as well. Okay, thank you. We'll look forward to receiving some more data. Councillor Ali, I think you want to come in? Microphone turn on.
I just wanted
yeah.
to say that, our social workers are, second to none in Southwark. They're dedicated, committed, and, highly professional. So, I would recommend, if you're going to do a deeper dive into this, definitely meeting with social workers. I did want to say something though, just an observation really, and that is, it isn't, because I've done, many years ago, I've done social work, and that you've got this pyramid of need where you've got the acute services at the top, and you've got neglect and lower level early intervention and prevention. It's a whole system. But I do think something different's happening now. It isn't just about poverty, and obviously it is important, but it's not just about housing poverty, and there's something else going on, the advent of social media, the fact that you've had all of these children that suddenly have come out of COVID, and then that are basically not neurotypical. Suddenly, what is quite new is the explosion into mental health issues. And all of these, make it a bit different, really. So, I think it would be good to look into, but I don't think, it's wrong to think that that is the only, and I don't think you were saying that, but, not now. The trends that we're seeing isn't just about poverty, although that's a big factor.
Yeah, of course, there's a plethora of different factors, isn't there? And yeah, I think certainly around neurodivergence and those macro trends that our children's generations are going through as something that I think national government probably needs to take more seriously. I'm sure there's commissions and steering groups to look at all of this. But just as an example, someone in my ward in South Bermondsey's come to me to ask for funding for a project to make our parks and playgrounds more accessible to disabled children and those who are neurodivergent. But it costs so much more money, right? And takes so much more creativity. So hopefully in further conversations you have with ministers, Councillor Ali, as you often do, you can be talking about all of that as well. So I'm sure we'll include that in our report at the end of the year. Okay, all right. We are running out of time. In theory, though, we do have a few more minutes on this item, and it is an important one. So, would anybody like to ask anything before we move on? No. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to a bit more data for us to get our teeth into, and perhaps inviting some other people along or going to see them to dig deeper. So, thank you for those recommendations. Wonderful. All right. So we're moving on to agenda item, I think 7, which is the Connect to Work programme. So I'd like to welcome up Nick Wolfe, the Employment and Skills Manager, and Kim Weatherston, Principal Programme Officer for Supported Employment. Welcome. One of the things we wanted to look at as a commission is employment support for those facing health and disability barriers to work. And we understand that actually a lot of that is delivered through the Connect to Work programme. So it felt appropriate to have you along. So we're really looking forward to hearing from you in terms of what it does to achieve those aims. We have around half an hour for this. So I would suggest 10-minute overview from you guys, and then we'll get into questions if that sounds good.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks to the Commission for inviting us along. Is this okay on the mic? Good enough?
We have been the mic police tonight, haven't we? Yeah, I think it's all right.
Okay. I will just give a very quick intro and then pass over to Kim, who'll take us through the slides and get into more detail about the programme. I think we first mentioned this to the Commission back in April in another report, which was about youth employment. And back then, this programme was in development. We were very excited about it. It started properly in Southwark in October, so it's a great time to bring it back now and talk about how far we've come and how far we still got to go and what we plan to do. This morning, the Director of Public Health launched her annual report specifically into the links between employment, unemployment, and health and ill health. I encourage members to read that when it's published. I don't think it's online yet, but some of the statistics in there are quite striking. In Southwark, we've got 1 in 25 working age adults who are out of work, and they say because of ill health or disability, and many more who are out of work with ill health and disability that will be contributing to that, perhaps, but they don't identify it as a primary reason. Nationally, obviously, there's the Get Britain Working white paper, the Keep Britain Working report that Charlie Mayfield published recently on behalf of the government, looking at the links between health and people being out of work, and then how to keep people in work who are struggling because of their health or disability. The big reason why we were really interested in this Connect to Work programme is because it's one of the first times, certainly that I can remember, where we in the local authority have received a DWP grant effectively to run a national programme where we can design it, deliver it as we want to within the framework of the national programme, obviously. And we really kind of grabbed that opportunity in Southwark. So I think there's two kind of things that I would kind of highlight about the programme and why we've done it this way. One is because we want to make sure that it's as integrated as possible with all the services locally, our health system, but also everything we've just been hearing about, around housing and social care and all of the wider kind of issues that influence why someone might find themselves out of work and struggling to get back into work. And the other exciting bit is that we have been able to create a new team in-house. So we've actually got council officers doing this work. So we are commissioning some of it, taking baby steps, but we are delivering about a third of the programme ourselves. Kim leads that team and leads the whole programme. So I'll pass over to Kim to give you some more details on it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
I'm gonna
all good
control-
for now.
I'm going to keep this on red just in case.
Keep it on
Um,
red. Yeah.
We've sent over the presentation slides, so I'm going to give a brief overview of the programme, just because I think it's better when you ask us questions, because I feel like there's a lot of information in here
Mhm.
and I like being probed a little bit. So
Just to check, however, I don't have a copy of the presentation. Does anyone else? We have a written, quite short report from Councillor Batterson in the supplemental agenda. There should be an appendix. We don't have the appendix. Okay, we're going to check on that. And hopefully we can get it on the screen at a minimum.
if not, I can happily go through in more detail if you want, yeah?
Yeah, please do.
yeah.
And as soon as we can, let's get it on the screen.
Perfect. So Connect to Work is a 12-month voluntary supported employment programme. So as Nick said, it's part of the Get Britain Working strategy. And the programme is for Southwark residents, predominantly with long-term health conditions and disabilities, but also people that are economically inactive and people that struggle to stay in employment. So regularly going in and out of the benefit system, in and out of employment. But we also focus on key priority groups as well, because we know there's a link between certain eligible groups and health as well. So in terms of the policy context, it is a DWP funded supported employment programme. And as I mentioned, we're targeting people that are out of work, but also people that are in work and at risk of falling out of employment. And it's designed for local delivery. It's tailored to the community needs and labour market. So in terms of our in-house team, we're focusing on working with other council departments. There's a lot of support in Southwark. And my role has been, amongst integrating with health professionals, is really to see how we can get everyone working together. There seems to be a lot of support, but no tied up service. So I've been banging on everyone's doors to work with me and scream about this programme. And in London, it's devolved to sub-regional partnerships. So Central London Forward is the accountable body. For Southwark, we're expected to have the highest participation. So there's 12 boroughs under CLF that are currently delivering Connect to Work. And we expect up to 700 starts per year and just over 2,000 residents supported over a 5-year period. And 8.3 million has been allocated for Southwark delivery right up until March 2030. So in terms of eligibility for Connect to Work, any Southwark resident that is over 18 with a right to live and work in the UK and not on another DWP funded programme such as Restart or the Work and Health programme will be able to join us. I'm pleased to say that we can also support people with no recourse to public funds as long as they can prove their right to work. If someone doesn't have a disability or long-term health condition, other groups that we can support, so there's many, but we have carers, ex-carers, ex-offenders, offenders, people that are homeless, as well as statutory homelessness, anyone in temporary accommodation, care leavers, refugees, resettled Afghan refugees, Ukrainian, domestic violence survivors, modern day slavery. We also support people with alcohol and drug abuse. young people at risk of crime and gangs, and also ex-armed forces and current armed forces. Now, how the program works, there's 2 employment support programs on Connect to Work. So we have the IPS model, which is individual placement and support, and we have the SEQF framework, which is supported employment quality framework. Now, just to kind of explain how they work, it's much more of a evidence-based supported employment program, where the philosophy behind it is to place someone into employment very quickly. We can work with will and intention to work regardless of the barriers. Doesn't matter how far away from job market someone is, but we need to make sure we're putting someone on the right support. So IPS focuses on us integrating with health provisions like the primary care network and creating wraparound support for the residents. So we liaise with each other, we bring them into the person's time on program, regular updates. We're not health practitioners, so we rely on their health knowledge and then they rely on our employment expertise. SEQF is focused for residents with learning disabilities and people that are neurodivergent. And this is a smaller caseload size per advisor. It's slide 5, just to make it easier. There we go. Thank you. So with SEQF, this is intensive, but it's for people with learning disabilities and neurodivergent. And here you work very closely with the employer. You go in and visit people at their place of work when they've started working. And on both programs, what our employment specialists will do is educate employers around people with disabilities and access to work, reasonable adjustments, but also they will go in and advocate for that person. So across the program, around 75% of participants are likely to join the IPS model and around 25% on the SEQF model. But when we pre-screen someone, we will determine which program is more suitable to them. So you'll see on the next slide in terms of what someone can expect from Connect to Work. So the very first person that they speak to on the program will be their employment specialist. They will work with them for the entire 12 months and also whilst they're in employment. We do the traditional CV tailoring, interview preparation, all that good stuff. We also work closely with employers using our social values team and also using our London Living Wage team to target employers for sustainable and good employment. I think what's really important to note is on this program, we do financial coaching with anyone prior to looking for employment with them. For younger people, we actually bring in the family because we know that a lot of parents are quite concerned about young people going into employment if it impacts their benefits. So we do make it a joint up approach just so that we can encourage young people to start working. And a key point to note is we don't have a one-size-fits-all approach to this program. We adapt our approach based on the resident and we operate a zero exclusion policy. So once someone is referred to us, even if they're not eligible or they're not suitable, we're then obligated to make sure we're putting them in contact with someone that is. So if I give an example of Trailblazers, for Southwark, they work just with care leavers aged 18 to 24, maybe 25. If they were to come through to us, even though we can support care leavers, it would make more sense for us to refer them over to Trailblazers because that is much more intensive support and they have the expertise more than we do. But the main thing is no one that comes to us gets turned away. They're always put to the most supportive provision. And then in terms of what happens once they're on the program, so once DWP have confirmed that they're eligible and they're suitable, then they start with us for 12 months. We create something called a vocational profile and it's revisited throughout the 12 months. And it's more to look at not just what their previous work experience is, but also we get to know their daytime routine, what time they go to bed, what time they wake up, if they have any previous work experience. A lot of it is being someone's cheerleader. So we often get people that say, I'm just a mum. And we're like, well, 1 second, do you know how many transferable skills you've got? So I'm pleased to say that I've got a great team of employment specialists and they don't take no for an answer from an employer. If they believe someone should get a job, they're going to go and get that job for that person. And I've worked on other employment programs where the focus is get someone into work, these are your targets. What I really love about this program is we target employers based on what our residents want. We do have to have some honest conversations. If someone wants to be a rocket scientist, then they're nowhere near there. but we do manage their expectations as well. But I mean, we could get anyone into a 0 hour cleaning job, but is that sustainable? Are they not just going to end back up on benefits? So that is not our approach. We want to say in 5 years from now that we boosted the local economy, but we've also changed their life. So we do have targets from DWP in terms of financial
I
earnings.
am just going to give you a bit of a time warning.
Yeah.
2 to 3 minutes, if
Perfect.
that's okay.
That's perfect. So just to let you know, in terms of our funding, we have targets around first earnings. So 50% of our program starts need to achieve a first earnings notification. 40% need to earn just under £2,000 with us, and 29%. Yeah, so I think I've skipped on to the next one now. It's actually on page 11, but I will go back to the integration because I think that's really important. But I'll just let you know in terms of our targets for slide 11. Yeah, perfect. Sorry. So you'll see on here, these are our performance measures, but I just wanted to touch on this just because we are running out of time. This is our targets for the entire 5-year program. I'm pleased to say we've achieved 100% on the first 2 targets. We're actually 200% now on first earnings, and we've already achieved the lower earnings threshold, which isn't tracked until January. So we've already got 3 people into employment since starting in October. And we've got really high referrals from our social prescribers. And I think a lot of that is down to the integration that we've put in place. So if you don't mind, if we could go back to slide 9. Thank you. So my focus since joining has been to really integrate with the health services across Southwark. So we've got really great relationships with social prescribers with the north and south of Southwark. We attend weekly calls with them where we update them on referrals, whether we sign them up to the programme. If we haven't, why not? Where have we signposted them to? But I think a good achievement for us is that we also attend King's College Hospital's MSK community days. So they happen once every 2 months, and it's to address people that are on the waiting list for physiotherapy. So they'll have physiotherapists there, but then you also have Citizens Advice, you have ourselves, and they triage that patient. So it may be that they don't actually need to go and see a physio, but they can access our support while they're there. And whilst we don't get high numbers of referrals, what we have noticed is that we've been able to increase our 50 plus cohort just from attending 2 of those days. So 9 people so far have joined the programme just through that. We're due to go again in January and March. And just to move on to slide 10, and then I'll let you ask us questions. So slide 10 just gives you a breakdown of how we're delivering the programme. So as Nick mentioned, I'm delivering the in-house, which is on the IPS model, and that is people out of work. And that is 30% of the programme. We have CTEC and Plus, and they will go live in January. So they're just in the mobilisation process, and they'll be supporting out of work residents on the IPS and SEQS framework. We also have Beam Up, and again, they'll be helping people that are out of work, IPS, SEQF. And JCCS and Careerology, they're helping people that are already in work but at risk of falling out. So again, they start in January. What we have done is already created a waiting list for all 3 of these providers because we have seen so many referrals. And the more we update our referring partners on weekly calls, there's an increase in referrals coming through. So pretty confident with how it's going at the moment, but I'd love to answer some questions if you have any.
Yeah, this is great. It's really cool. And it's great for us to hear something so new and fresh. I love how human-centered it sounds like the approach is. So that's great. Yeah, hopefully we'll have a few questions. I've got Councillor Hussain. We may have more, I guess. Councillor Hussain.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for that presentation. Yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. As Cass said, just you're taking like a real people-centered, human-centered approach. And I just love the way that you're joining up with other partners and really taking that kind of holistic approach and kind of matching people to the needs, their individual needs, as opposed to kind of yeah, just as you say, shoehorning them into jobs that's not going to be sustainable. And we should really be shouting from the rooftops in relation to this, because this is fantastic, because it has, you say, it has health benefits, it has mental health benefits, it has societal benefits. It's kind of, yeah, it's fantastic. Just from my perspective, I suppose, yeah, I think we need to shout about this more. So how do we shout about this more? Because it's amazing. And in terms of measuring, you mentioned like different demographics in terms of, I was going to ask about the 50 pluses, because I think you mentioned that, because obviously we focus a lot on NEETs, but that over 50s is kind of a real kind of, so what we're doing around them to get them back into employment if they've lost employment. And then in terms of measuring demographics, because you mentioned that we have care leavers, we have refugees, are we kind of taking a data-driven approach to that? And then if we are, kind of, what are the kind of the positive success stories that we're seeing in terms of that data?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll answer the question around 50 plus. I'll let you answer a question around data. But I will say I have an amazing project officer that records everything for us, which is brilliant. In terms of the 50 plus, so I'll be honest, it happened quite naturally. We're finding that most people over 50 are visiting GPs with health conditions, whether that's because they've been in employment for a long time and now they're getting to a certain age where health is impacting them. But the one thing that we have noticed is it's the age bias that they find from employers. So most of the people that we're working with, we've actually got 7 that are over 60, but that is brilliant for us to work with. I have a member in the team who's mid 60s, and she is a very big advocate for saying, look, I'm working, why can't you? And it's breaking down that stigma that I'm too old for work. I think people are definitely starting to realise there's a long time till retirement now. Obviously, it's a lot harder with benefits in terms of staying out of employment. So just when we deliver the message to anyone, I'm constantly promoting this program to anyone that will listen to me. If you was at a bus stop, I'd probably tell you about it as well. But it is really hitting home on whoever you're working with. If you're not sure, if you're on the fence about referring, send them to us. There's nothing to lose, because if we can't support them, we will make sure we actually put them in contact with someone that can. So the 50 plus has happened accidentally, but because we've supported so many people within the social prescribers network, they're like, oh, send this person over to connect to work. They'll support them. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on the Dave point, I suppose it's early days.
Yeah.
But yeah, as Kim said, we capture everything.
Brilliant.
And one of the great things about that is, we'll learn as we go. From the health perspective, there's an element of encouraging us to target our outreach in areas where we know there is the highest need from a kind of statistical perspective. But yeah, I mean, Kim, you've already got some great stories, haven't you, around residents who've successfully engaged with the program and have moved on into employment, with who would fall into all sorts of categories, if you like.
Yeah.
But I think the beauty of it is that the team doesn't address them as a category. It's about a person and their own kind of personal needs. Shouting about the program, just to pick that one up, we're going to launch it properly in January once the other providers are on board. And Amit, if you could go to the second last page, we didn't get to. We're going to be in Peckham, so there's a new space being opened as well, which will be another Southwark Works hub, because this is part of the Southwark Works program. It's just a very new and kind of innovative part of it. And it's going to be where Kim's team is going to be based. So it's around the side of Peckham Square, on Peckham Hill Street. It's being fitted out right now. We've had some mayoral funding in for that to help us out. And yeah, we'll be launching it in January and making a big noise about it.
Brilliant, thank you. You saved the best presentations or last.
Awesome, thank you. Councillor Bentley.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. 2 questions, mainly because I kind of didn't understand it. In terms of how many people that you anticipate being able to help, because I think you mentioned the funding. I think you said 8.3 million And was that until 2030? So just kind of understanding, because there could be like a limitless supply of people who could benefit from this, and just thinking, does there come a point where there's a limit to that? And then secondly, I used to be a trustee of a debt advice charity, so I was very interested in the point you made about young people and money and how that all works. And I was just wondering kind of what kind of age group are you including in the people that you would speak to about that kind of stuff? And are you working with specialist partners on that point?
Yep, so just in response to your first question, so in-house we are capped at 678 people that we can support. One of our providers is capped at 825, 375 for the second provider, and then 323 for the in-work support. Although that is a conversation that I kind of pester Nick with quite a bit, because we do have a lot more referrals than we have a target each month to sign people up. We've definitely got way more, but we're not going to stop signing people up. So if we go over this month, that's fine, but it's something that we have to constantly review, because caseload sizes are capped, so the quality of service is there. So it's just something that me and Nick work closely together on, looking at who we've got in place when we need to bring recruitment forward. Because one thing that we don't want to do is get over capacity and the quality of service drops, but then also turn people away because it is such a good provision. So yeah, it's always under review. We're only in our third month now, and it's just something that me and Nick engage weekly on the programme, and we look at potential risks, and it's something that we just constantly look at. In regards to the financial coaching, so we can refer to specialist providers, but I'm trained on benefit calculations. I've trained my team on benefit calculations. And in terms of bringing the family in, it's not a requirement of the program, but I'm one of 8 siblings. I have some family members that work, some that don't, and don't want their children to work for that reason. So it's more of a moral thing. Also, single parents, it's the lack of knowledge, knowing how much you can get in terms of childcare back from Universal Credit. So for me, I started as a caseworker prior to being a manager, and I could see people go from, no, I'm not looking for work, to actually seeing a financial calculation and realizing they can work and still be a parent, and PIP and stuff like that wouldn't be impacted. So we can refer to other people, but I like to keep it in-house. So it's something, the way I've created the program is within the first 4 weeks of joining the program, they have to have that calculation, and it will be based on part-time hours, something in the middle, then full-time. But when someone's interested in applying for a particular role, we'll go and revisit the calculation. Now, in terms of capping the age range, we work with people that are age 18. So naturally, if someone's living at home with their parents, we want to bring the parents in. But then also we find that some people don't necessarily declare everyone that's living in the household. So we only base it on what they tell us is on their claim. We don't tell them what kind of hours they should apply for. It's, these are the results. We explain it, give a proper breakdown. We give them disclaimers that it's based on their answers. It doesn't take into account food shopping and stuff like that. And then they make that decision on what hours they want to look for. And we even have like a pre-employment checklist. So if someone says, I really want to apply for this job, but it's an hour away and it's going to cost you £100 a week to get there, we really have those honest conversations, because what we don't want to do is put someone into employment, they then quit, and they're potentially sanctioned on their benefits. So it's really just bringing our collection of knowledge of the employment sector and the benefit system, and really making sure that someone has all the information they need to make informed decisions that are going to benefit them in the long run. Thank you.
This is so good. Normally, I and normally I'd be in just really trying to get. Obviously, it's late, isn't it? We all want to go home, but actually, I'm just so impressed. Honestly, I've got a couple of questions. Sort of linked to what Councillor Bentley said. I was thinking specifically about the hub in Peckham, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is incredible. And this is that place going to be inundated? Because if you compare that to a traditional job centre, that is like, it's worlds apart, isn't it? And once people get word of that, so I'm wondering about that hub specifically and how you're managing the capacity, and also around that hub, why Peckham?
Well, I don't know the why it's to Peckham, but I'm very glad it's in Peckham because I grew up in Peckham. So when I found that out, I was like, perfect. Thank you very much. The chicken shop across the road is amazing. But yeah, in terms of our hubs, so a key part of the program is really integrating with health providers. So we do have an element of referrals from Job Centre, but I've made a decision to step away from that and only work with people that aren't mandated to look for work. So from their disabled group. So we work with the disability employment advisors because otherwise you're going to get into the old routine of the work and health program where people, even though it's a voluntary program, they think if they don't join, you're going to go and tell their work coach. So we offer co-location. So we have to have a booking system. Like you said, we're going to be chock a block if we don't. And we've already created a staff rota for the team, but then we're also going to have a booking sheet because we really want to encourage. So, just as an example, with conversations with South London and Maudsley, they are also doing an IPS model, but at any point, a clinical director can discharge them from support. At that point, they want to refer them on. So we encourage them to come into our space, complete an exit interview, and bring up the conversation of employment. Same with citizens advice. We just want anyone that is seeing someone at the front door to really encourage employment as part of a recovery process to health. So yeah, we will try and fit as many people in as we can. We've got private meeting rooms, so you've got that privacy as well. But then we've got a nice welcoming space where we can do workshops and we can get employers in and we can, for me, I love a walk-in good news story. So we want to get residents in saying this is how great the program is and this is how it's helped me. And then employers that have committed to working with us saying why it's such a brilliant idea as well. But then you can answer the why.
Yeah, and I mean, just the point about co-location, we want lots of different services in this hub, not just the Connect to Work service ideas that, I mean, the social prescribers are delighted that they'll have somewhere to meet their patients as well, because quite often they struggle to meet them face to face. So it's about kind of, we want it to be really buzzy and a kind of, literally multi-service hub, but with a kind of an employment focus, definitely. So Southwark Works currently has the hub space on Walworth Road. That's staying. That's at capacity. There was no way we could fit Kim's team in there as well. We've been trying for the past couple of months while this is being fitted out, and it's a squeeze. So we need an extra space. I mean, the space, as with space generally, it's partly by design and partly by circumstance, but connected to the kind of the work around Peckham Square and the investment that the council's putting in Peckham Square, this opportunity came up. So we just jumped at it basically and thought it's on Peckham Hill Street, right next to the bus stop.
Yeah.
It's really easily accessible. It's more accessible from the south of the borough than Walworth Road is, really. So it just kind of extends that reach into parts of Southwark that are not well served by one hub on Walworth Road.
Awesome. And I wonder if my question's been kind of answered, but I was thinking about the hyper local partners across the borough. So in Bermondsey, Big Local Works in the Blue, like how are you engaging those guys who obviously have those really local connections?
So we kind of skipped over this bit of the presentation a little bit, but the way that we have designed the program is we've allocated different delivery bodies, different delivery partners by referral routes, basically. So we've got Kim's team really focusing on the health system and council teams. CTEC and Plus are focusing on the kind of the services around the Southwark Resource Centre. So the Disability Hub, carer service that's being commissioned, the Wellbeing Hub, the Nest as well, which isn't in the Resource Centre, but it's kind of a similar kind of activity. And we've got another organisation, Beam, who already work with our homelessness and housing needs team around employment support. And their focus is on homelessness, but also working out into the community. So working with faith groups, community groups, family hubs. So we want them to be kind of getting really out into the kind of the community networks and those hyperlocal groups and building those. They already have a lot of those relationships. They work as well already with the refugee and resettlement team. So kind of and those networks. So they'll be kind of a bit more dispersed than the other teams, Kim's team is really focused on health. CDEC and Plus perhaps more on the kind of social care side of things. But what we didn't want to do is to have different providers kind of not, and then confused referral routes. So every organisation out there in Southwark that could be referring into Connect to Work will know which bit of the system it's referring into.
Sorry, is the idea that I know, taste of my own medicine, is the idea that this is kind of a pilot program in terms of government funding, and that more will come, or not?
We certainly hope so.
Okay.
We wanted to develop this program this way so that Southwark is better positioned to take on more devolved DWP funding in future, should it become available. Interestingly, Connect to Work is quite likely to be bundled into the integrated settlement. So that will go into the kind of the GLA auspices, which creates challenges and opportunities, really, because it's a shift from where we started, and we built it out with relationships with DWP, and those relationships will shift to GLA. It's a long-term game, but strategically, that's the aim, is to position ourselves so that we can demonstrate that this stuff is best done locally.
Yeah.
We can build these networks, we can build these relationships in ways that national programs really struggle to.
Amazing. Councillor Hussain?
Thank you. And just on that, kind of, it'd be like, at the moment, or have you got any plans to kind of share this best practice and like share it with other boroughs and councils across the country? Because as I say, this, if you can you measuring your impacts and you're kind of articulating your outputs and what you're achieving, then it'd be great to share that with other areas.
Yep. So one thing I do like to do is shout about success. So we as part of CLF, there's the 12 boroughs, and then you also have a delivery partner delivering the program. So the plan is, now that everyone's officially going live, and we started in October, some people started in July, and our commission providers start in January, what we're going to start doing is best practice sessions. So it might be around integration with healthcare, for example. So feedback so far is we're the best integrated with health provision. So how have we done that? And sharing that with them. So we had our first face-to-face meeting, and it was about how can we work together where everyone benefits. So an example is we've been targeting large employers, focusing on their social values, but also reputation, the fact that this is a free recruitment service, if you like, and really tapping into things businesses are worried about. And one example, Pinnacle, we've been able to create a pilot scheme where we're going to test out Southwark first with our residents. They put a business case forward to change their recruitment process because it doesn't work for people with health conditions. So whether that's a job trial, whether that's them attending in person and speaking to people without the need for a CV, just a different approach rather than a one size fits all. And then once that's successful, we'll then roll it out to CLF and all of the boroughs so everyone can access it, because of course we want to do well. Confident in 5 years' time, I'll be smiling saying, yep, every measure's been achieved or exceeded. But we need the other boroughs to do well if we stand a chance of more funding and hopefully longevity as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. Well, definitely communicating to other boroughs and sharing best practice needs to happen. So yeah, we should make that recommendation. Obviously it's early days, so we'd love to have you back. We'd love to see the hub in Peckham. So yeah, good luck with it. This has been very engaging and useful. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have the final item now, which is the proposed work programme for the year. And that is at the back of your main agenda pack. Oh my goodness. So we're currently on the 3rd of December. And moving forward, we've got 2 more meetings, one on the 2nd of Feb, one on the 26th of Feb. We do have 2 more cabinet member interviews to do. So we have to do those. We need to do Councillor Batterson. We need to do Councillor Mwanganje. That's changed. Oh my goodness, it's changed. It's changed. Wouldn't be Ellie. Councillor Combo is Parks and Culture. Rich. Yes. Yes. Yeah, please let's confirm that. Page 15. Yeah, because I don't know whether a deputy cabinet member would be interviewed in that way. I guess we can invite anyone, can't we? So, yeah, and actually that would be useful to do, I think, given that that part of her portfolio has moved to a deputy role, kind of thinking about that decision, what impact that might have. And for new members, just to say, we've been shaping this work plan as we've gone. We always have the opportunity to shape it in the meeting, but also outside of the meeting. So if you have ideas and they don't come to you tonight, please do get in touch with myself and the Vice Chair and Amit, and we can think about including them. The youth offer is something we wanted to look at as well. So yeah, we'll need to make sure we get clarity on that. Keeping education strong, that's been a key theme throughout the years on this commission. Lots more. I won't read every bullet point. When we last met, we talked about care leavers and connecting the economy side of the commission with education. I think we're somewhat on the way to having achieved that. Can I ask the group, is there anything on that list that you think is particularly important for us to cover, or indeed, are there any gaps?
So, Chair,
Yeah.
so we've got, in the new year, we've got 2 meetings quite close to each other, 2nd of February and 26th of February. So we might have to make a decision on what reports to ask for before the end of the month or mid-month.
Good point.
To give them enough time, because it's early Feb and mid-Feb.
Yeah, and we have had problems with not getting reports, so we should do that. And for context, I believe that is because it is an election year in Southwark, so committee meetings have to happen well in advance of that season. Yeah, Councillor Bentley.
On that note, how does it work with our recommendations for this year? When are they done? Are they done after?
Good point.
I don't know how it works.
Last year it was sort of May time. We did. I think what Councillor Bentley's asking about is because of the election year and the usual timings for submitting our report. Does that shift? What's the knock-on effect of that scheduling?
So, in that case, Chair, with the elections, the cabinet will not meet until after the elections. So the first meeting after the elections would be when they would have the opportunity to look at the report.
Right. So actually, timings-wise, it probably doesn't affect.
No, I think we've got a bit more time.
Right.
This year than we
Right.
had last year.
Because the last meeting is earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the report would be done following the last meeting, but it wouldn't be obviously reviewed by the cabinet, whomever they may be, until May.
That's correct. Yes. I mean, the process works in a way that cabinet have 8 weeks to respond after they receive the report at a meeting. So they're supposed to. So if cabinet, let's say, meet in about July, then we might get a response back by September.
And so I guess I would propose, if we've got 2 more meetings, that we do what we've kind of been doing this past year, which is separating kind of education from local economy. And it makes, I mean, today's been quite education, young people, I guess, skills heavy. That we invite Councillor Batterson back on the 2nd of February. I think that gives them enough time, doesn't it?
Enough time to
Prepare.
I would hope so.
Yes.
Yes. So
And I think what's kind of missing from this is some of that stuff around the high streets and the commercial property stuff that we dug into last time, which I think is still ongoing. That it's clear that still small businesses, high streets aren't kind of where they should be.
Yeah.
And what are we doing?
yeah, absolutely. And that makes me think, because we've been speaking about timings of recommendations, in theory, we don't have to wait until the end of year report to put a recommendation to cabinet, do we?
So Chair, as long as we've covered the evidence base on all the different aspects that we want to look at on that item.
Yeah.
Then we can submit recommendations anytime.
Okay.
So we just have to make sure we have all the evidence. If there are some aspects of it we're still going to look at in future meetings,
Yeah.
that it makes sense to wait.
Fine. So could perhaps we get an initial set of recommendations as per the last meeting with Ben from the Bermondsey Bid, who was talking about commercial rents and communications with the council, because it'd be good for us to see where we're at on that and whether we feel that's enough or we need to dig deeper. We probably do. So yeah, if we could have that in good time, perhaps first week of January latest, I would say, that we can get some requests out. That would be good.
Chair, sorry.
Please.
On page 4 of the minutes, I've listed the areas of recommendations. So if members want to give it a brief read, and then, I mean, it's not worded as per what should go in the report, but if everyone's happy with it, then I can work on those areas and prepare a draft set of recommendations.
Yes, please. That would be good. Any comments? So we're looking at page 4. Yeah, the four bullet points. I mean, obviously there's only 4, but they're quite broad, like making it easier for businesses to navigate the council's processes. That we can add some meat on the bones there. Yeah, that would be good, and then we can make a decision about where else we might want to focus and who to invite in that area. I am mindful of time. It's getting quite late. But if there are no other suggestions tonight, as I said, the door or the inbox, as it were, is always open. So get in touch. Councillor Bentley, myself, and Amit tend to meet in advance anyway to have a bit of an agenda planning session. So yeah, get in touch in the next couple of weeks if there's anything else you think we're missing. Fab. All right. Well, that's everything. So thanks everyone for coming. Have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you. I mean, oh.